All right, so let's discuss API today. Let me close this. Let's close this as well. So basically, we have three things in a software, okay? We have front end, we have one backend, um, and we have one server, okay? So what happens, how a web application behaves is they behave. First of all, we are talking about REST API, okay? So we will understand what is REST API, what is SOAP API. Let's try to understand. So let's suppose you there is a login page and you did a login to any functionality. What you did is you sent a username and slash password. Okay, PWD. So what it's going to do is it is going to give this information to the server through backend. Okay, through backend it is going to give the information to server. We call that a request. Then server is going to respond it back whether they are proper or not. We call it response. Okay, so all our web applications, be it any kind of web application, 99% of 90, I would say not 99, 90% of the web applications work on this phenomena: request and response. Okay, and this is also what we call the REST, REST, REST API. Okay, so let me show you a how it works actually. Okay, so let's suppose now we are doing a search over here. So let me you can click inspect and you can go to the networks tab. So right now we have this page. Okay, so let's do a search. So can you see all these search itinerary? Okay, and this is going to send a request. Okay, see over here it is sending a request to this URL. This is the end point of it. Okay, so we basically in URL, we also called it endpoint. Okay, in real-time projects, endpoint. So this is the endpoint. What it is going to do is it is going to get send a get request. What get request means, we will understand these methods. So it is going to send a get request and it is going to ask certain information. For example, we have searched here for the flights, for the particular flights. So if you can see in here, request headers, all these informations are mentioned, like what are request headers, what are the path parameters, what are the query parameters, and all these things. Okay, so this is the request body and everything. In some cases, we have a request body as separate. In some cases, we have a request body in the path only. Okay, how do we get what is the request parameter in each and every web application? Whenever you are doing any testing, can you see the question mark over here? So this question mark denotes that after this question mark, all these are queries. Okay. So what are these queries? Let's discuss these queries. Let's discuss this complete URL first. Anyone knows what do we call this? We call this protocol. Okay. And we call this our base URL. Okay. And we call this endpoint. After this, these are all the path parameters. Can you see over here it is written itinerary. What is the itinerary? This is the short form for Delhi. And this is Delhi to Bombay, and this is the date for which we are looking for the flights. Okay. This is the actual date, and this is Bombay to Delhi, the return flight date, which we have mentioned. This is our first query, okay, which we mentioned over here. Now, like trip type, what is the trip type? Trip type is R is the short form for round. Okay, so this is our second query, but we what do we call this? We call this path parameter. Okay, you're going to like do this in any web application, you're going to get same kind of scenarios. Okay.
Hello.
Yep.
Today I received a same call from TCS.
Hmm.
They all are asking about in which project are you working in previously.
Umesh, we are going
Yes.
to discuss this after the call.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So actually, sorry, we call this query parameter.
Okay. Okay. No issue.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. So all the queries which we are going to follow over here, like these query after question mark, this strip type, and this pay text, after each and every and, you are going to see a new query. Okay. So this is how you are going to fetch the information. So what it is doing internally is, let me explain. Okay, these are all the query parameters which is this request is sending. This request over here, search, is sending all these queries to the database of it. We call this database. Okay, database, you wanna call it server, you can call it server as well. Okay, to the database of it over here, and then this database is going to send a different response over here. So like whatever response the database have according to these queries. Okay, this is how a web application actually works in API structure. Okay, let's call any other application. Okay, Amazon.com. Okay, so let's inspect Amazon.com and search search over here and go to networks tab, and let's clear this and search mobiles. Okay, so can you see all these are the requests which are sent by the front end? This is the front end. Okay, and these requests are sent to where? To the back end, to the database. Can you see? These are the status codes of these requests. Can you see? All these are requests. If you will open any request, can you see this request is failed? What could be the failure reason? You can check it in here. So this request could not be referred directly. So we will understand this, what is direct refer or not. Okay. So this how an web application works. Okay. So let's talk about some of the theoretical things. After that, we are going to install the Postman today. Okay. So there are some basic theoretical things which we need to cover and to understand the API structure better. Okay. So what do we have in our API is key constraints of API. Okay. So basically, there are certain rules, set rules, which are provided by and these rules are generic, okay, for all the environment, any company who is working on REST API, REST protocol. If you want to check the full form of REST, full form of REST is representational state transfer. Yeah, sorry, transfer. Okay. There is another one thing which we call is SOAP UI. So what is the difference between REST and SOAP? We are going to discuss it later. For initially, what we are going to, yeah, what we are going to do is we are going to talk about the key constraints of REST API. So what is the first key constraint of REST API is client and server architecture. Okay. So what is basically our client? Client is basically our front end. Okay. And server is basically our database. Okay. We call this client and this is server. This is very important and always remember this. If you are clear in these key constraints, you will never fail in API. Okay. So from front end, we do the requests and from the server, we get the response. So any web application, be it Amazon, Flipkart, all 90% of the web applications are working majorly on client and server architecture, request and response. Okay. So if you are having this kind of architecture, then this is the first, basically this is the first key constraint of REST API. Okay. Now, what is the second thing we have in our REST API? Okay, so before we proceed, can you tell me what happens when we do a Google search? How does it work internally?
Our call goes to Google database and we get the result back from server.
Exactly, as simple as that. What we do in API testing is the same thing, but we are not doing it from the front end. We are not doing it from this UI layer. How we are going to do is we are going to do it with the Postman, this tool. So we will get to it as well. So we are going to do it with this tool, wherein we are going to provide our information. Like this is the URL, and we are going to send our GET request, and we are going to get the response. Right now it is not connected. Oh, this is for localhost. This is for different environment. I will show you how we do it. Okay. So this is basically our first key constraint. Okay. Now let's talk about the second thing, which is a major key constraint, and that is stateless. Okay. Before we proceed to stateless, can we let's cover some of the things into it, okay, so that we do not come back. Uh, can you suggest me any advantages of it? Like if you can take a guess. So the first advantage of this is our front end and back end is completely separate entity. Okay. Completely separate entity. If let's suppose any person who hacks into your front end, okay, every each and every person has an access to the front end, right? So we have to keep our database secure. Okay, we have to provide security. So our database remains the complete separate entity. There is a business logic layer as well in between. Okay. So usually what happens, it goes through in this direction, but it goes at the end of the day to directly to the server. So all these three entities are separate, completely separate. So that is why, that is the only reason you can have separate languages. This client, this front end can be developed separately. This back end can be, business layer can be developed separately, and database can be developed separately. Each and every separate entity, and if we are going to do any number of change, it is not going to impact this entity or this entity till the time we are changing the connections of it. You will understand connections when you will work like as a Java developer. If you will work on microservices architecture or the complete architecture, then you will understand what are connections. So what we basically do is we create an endpoint, we create an API. Okay, and we provide the information, we provide the endpoint of it so that any user can access it with credentials. Now, can anyone give me a live example of this? So right now we were talking about just internally. Okay, let's talk about externally. Any example you can think of? Okay, let me give you the first example. Okay, let's start from the basic. Okay, you have an ATM machine of any bank, right? You have a debit machine of any bank for like HDFC or ICCI or Citibank, any bank. Okay, and you can put in any card and you can get the details of and get your money debited from any account. So how does it happen? Because try to understand this thing. Okay, this is a little complex. So you have one bank. If you get confused somewhere, do let me know. This is HDFC Bank. Okay, and this is Citibank. Okay, We have the ATM, we have their databases, separate databases. Do you think HDFC is going to share his database and their bank's database to Citibank? Or Citibank is going to share their database with HDFC Bank? No, right? Because
No.
they do not want their information to be shared with another competitor. So what they did is they created an API. Okay. Now this database is also connected with this API, and this database is also connected with this API. Now what the end user is doing, he is getting connected with this API. He is not directly interacting with this database or this database. Now what you are going to do is you are going to send a request to debit 1000. Okay. So what it is going to do is you're going to send this request and it is going to validate it with this. Okay. You're going to provide the information. Like, is it when you're going to send the request, you're going to provide the information that it is a HDFC bank credit card and all the information, your username and your PIN or everything. Okay. So right now what you do is you just enter PIN. But if you think internally, then it creates a complete payload. Remember this term. Okay. This is very important in API. Payload. Okay. Now here what you have is you have your bank name. Okay. BK name. Okay. You have username. You have password. You have what else you have? You have PIN. You have account details and all the information. So this is a complete payload. What this API is going to do is this API is going to send this payload to this database. Okay, send this payload to this database. Now this database is going to validate it, whether all the information which is provided, like the bank name, username, and all the details is provided is correct, and then it is going to send the response. That information is correct, you can debit the information. Okay. So this is how internally it works. This is a very great example. Now you can see any number of web applications. They are having features of like UPI. Everyone understands UPI, like payment transaction. Let's suppose you are going to any application, e-commerce application, travel application, insurance application, you can make payment directly through your bank UPI. Okay. So do you think the bank is sharing their database with that web application? Bank is sharing their like with Paytm or anything? No, right? So it works with API structure. Any confusions in this?
No.
Great.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Do let me know what is the confusion.
Can you go back to the
Hmm.
diagram
Hmm.
which you made? Yeah. So why are this API is connected to both the banks? There can be API connected to database only. There can be two APIs also, no? One is connected to through the database of HDFC and one is connected to the. database of Citibank. So why it is connected to both?
And do you know
Yes,
Visa,
yes.
Mastercard, and
Okay.
yeah.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
do you know the business structure of Visa, Mastercard, RuPay,
Yeah.
or there are certain other fintech organizations?
Yeah.
So, their
Mhm.
job, because see what happens, it is a very security issue because their data cannot be leaked any person. So, they have to be in that database, that authorization should be given to a very reputed firm. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is the only way, only few of the fintech companies have this authorization wherein they are allowed to make transactions. Because if any third person is going to make an API and provide it, then it is going to be like a lot of hustle and issues if any person hacks into that API and get the money out of the bank account.
Okay.
So
So,
so there could be any your question is right. So this could be the API of Visa. Okay, Visa.
mhm.
This could be an API of Mastercard. Okay, this could be an API of what do we have? RuPay. That is Indian RuPay. So these are separate APIs. It is not like that. It is just one API. There can be multiple different APIs. It totally depends which company. Like let's suppose uh, this is a shopping website. Okay. So now shopping website has this option of like here we have Visa, here we have Mastercard, here we have RuPay. Okay. Okay. Now it totally depends on this shopping website, which of these API this website is going to use. Okay. It is your bank's choice with API they want to connect it. And all of these APIs have the same quality, like they are connected with each other. So the transaction is happening through them. Okay. You're not transacting with them. You're not transacting your money with Visa or MasterCard. You're just making the transaction to your bank account with this, through this bank account. Is it clear now or still confused?
so you are giving an example by the mean of paying. Okay.
Yeah.
Like you want to pay something. What if there is something like we don't want to pay, or like there is any site we are
Hmm.
just visiting, but
Yeah.
there is no shopping or no banking experience
Yeah. Yeah.
included.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there can be different UPI for them, no?
Are you talking about UPI or API?
API.
Yes, yes, yes. There are like 1 million APIs in the web market.
Okay.
Yeah. So each and even see our complete application is built on API only. So if I talk about web services, I just showed you, right? This
Yes.
example, make my trip. Okay, let's go back. So if we are doing, if we are, so internally, we are not just talking externally right now, okay? This is internally in the application. So internally, if in the application, if you can see, these are the number of APIs which are getting hit just to get the information. Can you see? These are all the information. If you will open any, see request method, if you will open this request method, if you will open this request method, so complete infrastructure is built on API only, the request and response. So there can be millions of APIs. It is not like that. This is just a particular example, like how it works in this particular scenario, so that you can understand this. What is the API structure? Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what could be the advantages of client and server architecture? So the first advantage is, where is my tab? First advantage is client and server are separate entity. Okay. What could be the next advantage? They can evolve independently. Third,
Secured, more secured.
more secure. And the client need not know about server architecture. Okay. So client को जो हमारा front end है, that front end should not know how the complete backend and database is like. It just know we have to send a request. Okay. And now it is the server's responsibility to send the response. Okay. And vice versa. Okay. So these are the major advantages. There are a lot of advantages which we can discuss, but these are the major ones. Okay. So let's talk about the next one. Next key constraint of REST API is, this is clear, right?
All clear.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay. So what does stateless mean? Stateless basically phenomena which states that each and every request you are sending to server does not store any memory of it. Okay. How to understand it? Like we have sent a request over here. Okay. We have sent this request to our server that fetch me this information. He authenticated it, server authenticated it and gave you that information. Now server does not hold any information. Your passwords are saved, your cookies are saved, your caches are saved. All that information is saved basically in the client side. Okay. There is no information which is saved on the server side. So let's suppose you sent a request. Okay. Can you see, if you will go to Google and you will see this. Okay. So this is a suggestion list. Okay. How we are getting this suggestion? Because our client, basically our front end, saved some information regarding the session. Okay. But if we talk about backend, basically not backend, server. Try to understand it with the term server. So with server, there is no information stored. All the information which is going to be stored, it will be in our client side. Okay. Is states that. No info will to server. I'm sorry, not shared, saved in server. Okay. So, and we call this behavior is called stateless. Okay. Now there is one more constraint which we call it cache. Now we all know cache, right? Cache memory. So each and every REST API have this constraint, have this feature. You can call it feature, functionality, or constraint, or anything you want to call it. But this that all the information, all the responses, not all basically, responses are cacheable. What do you mean by cacheable? It is going to be saved into the memory for next session. Okay. So next time what is the benefit of cache? Like it's a very simple thing. What could be the benefit of cache? It improves our speed, right?
We get response very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. So if we have this response already saved in the cache memory, then we don't need to do all it is going to fetch the information directly. So it improves the speed of it and what do we call enhance the quality, enhance user experience. So these are the major so these are which you should remember. So there are two, three more. One is uniform interface. Okay. And what else we have? There is one more thing we have. I think two more things we have. One is layered system, and there is one more thing, code on demand. So this is skippable. Basically, if a website code on demand is like if the user is requesting for the code, you should provide the code of it. So this is skippable. Like any web application doesn't every web application saves their code, right? No one provides it. So this is skippable. Basically, layered system is basically how to explain layered system in one line is like you have multiple layers in requests and it is going to travel like that. So if your request is traveling like that, so let's suppose any hacker did a penetration into this, and we call it penetration testing as well. Yeah. So he will not be able to get into it because it is a layered system. So basically, this is what layered system is. Nothing else. You don't need to remember it, like nobody is going to ask you layered system. And if you want to understand it more, like I'm going to provide you notes into it. And uniform interface is basically all the REST APIs, not APIs, you can say application. Okay. Now you understand the key constraints of REST API. Okay. So all of you are logged in with your laptops?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So let's go to this web application, Postman download. Where is the Mac version? So either you are logged in via a Windows or Mac.
Mac.
So for you, this link would work.
Can you share with me the link?
Yeah, yeah, I will share with you, but why it is not showing?
Okay.
Okay, so you have an Intel chip or Apple chip? The
Apple.
processor, Apple chip, M1 chip, right? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. It's already down. Okay, so you're going to click over here, okay, Apple chip, and the Windows people, they are going to click on this Windows 64-bit. Go ahead and install this into your computers. Okay. And tomorrow onwards, we are going to do all the things into Postman. Okay. What are different methods which we use? What are query parameters, path parameters, and all those things we are going to do tomorrow. Okay. If you find any difficulty installing this, then do let me know. Okay. But it is very simple. Like you just have to do click, 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 next, 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 and you are going to install it into your system. You can use a web version as well, but I would suggest like try to install it in your machine. Okay. Any doubts in API for now? Like you understood, right? What is the base of it, the root of it? Everyone got the link?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Umesh, you can stay on the call. We can have the discussion.